Hello and welcome to this GTM Plastics installation video. The first thing you need to do is mark out the distance between hole centres for the cable kit's top fixing, the inner fitting that you'll unscrew. Make sure you double and triple check the measurements before you start drilling, otherwise you'll end up drilling in the wrong place, which will be really upsetting. Start with a 3 to 4 mm diameter pilot drill and make sure you go deep enough to accept the plastic plugs. Then change to a 7 mm diameter drill bit to finish off. Once you've drilled the holes, you need to insert the plastic plugs. Just tap them in gently with a hammer. I like to turn the hammer 180 degrees just to use the round end to finish off. It just helps get them flush, but you don't need to do that. Then we need to unscrew the inner fitting from the small cable kit fixing, that's the top end. So I'm just holding it where it's going to screw onto the window recess top. You'll get the screws with the kit, so just screw the inner fittings to the window recess top or into the ceiling if you're attaching the cable kits to the ceiling. And just tighten them up gently, it doesn't have to be too hard. Then we need to screw the outer body of the top cable kit fixing onto the inner fittings that we've just attached to the window recess top. I'm just going to tighten them up loosely to start with. Allow the cable to hang down after you've undone the two little plastic ties, and then just finish off tightening the outer body. Do the same for the other side. Allow the cable to hang down after removing the ties, and then just tighten up the outer body again. So that's the top end done. Now we need to do the bottom end. Again, mark out the distance between hole centres first and definitely triple check the measurements. Make sure they're in the right place before you start drilling and that they line up with the top hole positions. Then we go in with a 3 to 4 mm diameter pilot drill as we did before. Go into the full depth that we need and a little bit further just so it accepts the plastic plug. And then once we've finished with the pilot drill, we need to change to a 7 mm diameter drill bit just to finish off. And again, we now need to insert the plastic plugs. So just gently tap those in with a hammer, just like we did for the window recess top. And the same for the other side. And now we need to attach the inner fittings to the window recess bottom, exactly like we did for the window recess top. Those inner fittings are identical for the top and bottom, so just screw those in nice and firm. I'm just removing the inner fitting from the other cable kit. The first one I already had sitting on the window recess. And now, once we've fixed the inner fittings onto the window recess bottom, and this is where it gets interesting because it's the larger fixing of the cable kit which contains the spring and the adjustable sliding brass nipple. We want to slide those components up the cable out of the way so that we can cut the cable to length without them getting in the way. So we need to loosen both screws in the brass nipple, slide all three components upwards, just gently nip up one of the grub screws in the brass nipple, like so. Now, you don't need to use a tape measure. I'm using a tape measure just for demonstration purposes. It's actually 15 mm above the bottom surface that you need to cut the cable, but the top edge of the bottom fixing also happens to be 15 mm above the bottom surface. So all you need to do is hold the side cutters press down against the top edge of the bottom fixing as you're cutting the cable, and it will be at the correct length. Then you need to loosen the screw in the brass nipple, allow all three components to slide back down, lock the brass nipple up at the end of the cable, 2 to 3 millimeters short from the end of the cable will be fine, tighten both screws nice and firmly. I'm just doing a quick spring tension check and it feels just a tad loose, so I'm just going to move the brass nipple 2 to 3 millimeters further up the cable by loosening the screws. Just slide the nipple upwards just a tad and re-tighten that up nice and firm on both screws. So I'll just screw the outer body onto the inner fitting. And the cable kit is nice and taut. We need to do exactly the same thing for the other cable kit, so I'll just remove both of the plastic ties. Again, loosen the 2 little grub screws in the brass nipple. Then slide everything upwards out of the way. Tighten up one of the screws just gently. Cut the cable to length by pressing the side cutters on the top edge of the bottom fixing. Loosen the little grub screw, allow the components to slide back down. Lock the brass nipple about 2 to 3 millimeters from the end of the cable. Once again, just a tad loose, so I'm just going to move the brass nipple further up the cable by 2 to 3 millimeters. Retighten both screws nice and tight. There we go, and now just screw the outer body onto the inner fitting. There we go, so that's both cables nice and tight. The next thing we need to do is attach the LED light pockets between the cables. Start by removing the clamps from the packaging, and then to attach each of the 4 clamps onto the flange of the light pocket, you might need to just loosen that larger grub screw slightly, you might not. And there are some small recessed notches in the flange that help you locate the clamp, so that makes that job nice and easy. Now we need to remove the smaller of the 2 screws from the clamps. As you can see, that's the screw coming out of the slot. Those slots are the slots that the cables are going to slide into. You'll also notice that there are some electrical connections at one end of the pocket. Those need to be at the bottom, so just keep your eye on which way up it is. It opens from the top. We need to reinsert the 4 screws. I'm just going to do them up all the way and then back them off a 1/4 of a turn. Now just nip up 2 of the screws gently, just so that we can keep the pocket at the approximate position that we want to finish at. Do a quick tape measure check. Now we need to do exactly the same thing for the second light pocket. So again, remove all 4 screws from the slots of the clamps. And after we've removed all 4 screws, we do the same thing. Just slide the pocket into the cables, reinsert the screws, tighten them up all the way, and then just gently back off just a 1/4 or even an 1/8 of a turn. That will allow us to slide the top pocket to the finished position. And now I need to just raise the bottom pocket just to be a little bit closer to the top pocket so it just looks a bit better. You can obviously set them at any height you want, there's no rule for this. Now to insert a poster, we just flex away the face panel, drop in the first poster. Also we can insert a poster on the other side because there's a compartment on both sides of the center light panel. Now we've got the power supply. That comes with the connectors already attached on the output end, the 12-volt end. We've got the positive connection of the power supply going to the right cable, as you can see, it's got a little red dot on. Notice that the machined beveled edge of the light pocket is facing inwards into the shop, which means the unmachined face is facing out into the street, which just happens to be the side that gives you the more prominent defined border. The border still illuminates on both sides, but it's just a little bit better defined on the smooth unmachined face. We want the positive connection of the power supply going to the right cable and the negative connection of the power supply going to the left cable. It's just a standard UK 3-pin plug and job done. There's a photo with the pockets in place. There's a lovely photo from outside showing the prominent border and another photo from outside. Thanks for watching.